Hey everybody, this is Dark Side Elite here, and I wanted to do this video because this just hit the pike, and I wanted to get information on this. It seems that it really seems that MCU might be losing Spider-Man. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. I'm not gonna make, and this might be long. It might be a rant. It might be just some clarification, but this is going to be probably pretty long, and I hope that you guys enjoy. But this is something I had a feeling it was most likely going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen this soon. I thought it was going to happen a little bit later. Um, this whole situation with Spider-Man was very icky from the very beginning, and it should never have happened in the first place. They honestly, I think Sony just needed something to really help, and because they had so many failings, and none of the previous two Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield really didn't help the situation. But having Tom Holland part of it really brought a level of energy, and I really like the kid. I like him. He fits the Peter Parker mold, but he's not Peter Parker. He's somebody else, and I feel personally that Spider-Man is my favorite superhero in Marvel, and I take a lot of the stories and the lessons that he learns, and I put that towards my everyday life. I mean, Peter Parker tries his best not to let things get to him, and he looks for the brighter picture, and he lives up to his responsibilities, and that's how everybody should look at it. It's not about Peter living his life under the guise of his uncle. It's more the fact is his uncle is gave him the greatest gift, and the greatest gift is that he taught him how to be a man. He taught him how to be a responsible individual, and with his powers, even if he didn't have his powers, his natural gift, his natural intellect, his smarts, that's a responsibility that he should live up to. That he should be able to use that to save people. And him having his powers, that's just icing on the cake. But yeah, a lot of bad things happen to him, and in some ways he lives a very dour life. But he always looks to the brighter things. He looks to his Aunt May. He looks to the friends that he covets, and they always give him some level of simience when it comes to looking at the brighter picture. And yes, he does have Mary Jane, and at one point he had Gwen Stacy, but some of those things are sometimes fleeting, and he has to look at the brighter picture, and he can't let his uncle's death be an anchor that keeps him way down. And but he is a responsible person. He is a naturally huge responsible person, and that's why I liked the Sam Raimi version of Spider-Man. I think that they got down to the core of of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. That he works very hard. He's a blue collared hero. He has to go to 9 to 5 jobs, and he has to pay bills, and put food on the table for himself, but he still has to go out there and save people's lives, and he gets no gratitude for it. He gets the occasional, hey, great job, Spider-Man, but he doesn't get any money for it. He doesn't ask for it because he feels that no hero should ask for money. And that should tell tales of who the type of character Spider-Man is, and the type of person that Peter is on a whole. But this situation with Tom Holland, his Spider-Man has no responsibilities. He doesn't. I mean, if you look at his character, he's a teenage kid who has all these powers, but he doesn't have any level of responsibility. He doesn't. He's living all of his everything he's ever gotten was given to him by Tony Stark. Everything. I mean, he has his suit given to him by Tony Stark. He has basically a back door into the Avengers. So whenever he gets old enough, he can go into the Avengers. He hasn't built himself up to be a true hero yet, and that's what people are jumping up and down, and saying that, well, this is the Spider-Man that I wanted to see. Really? I don't think so. I think that you just jumping on bandwagons because you just want to see Spider-Man in the MCU, so you get the stories that you want. Now, you have the right to say that. You do. You have the right to say that, but have conviction about it. Like, have some truth, some levels of truth and fact behind it. But if you take away everything that Tony Stark ever gave to him and you put him in the same boat as, let's say, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, who basically had to sew his own suit. He had bio webbing, but he still had to make his suit. He had to make the 9 to 5 jobs. He had to pay his Aunt May. He had to help his Aunt May because she wasn't able to pay the bills. He had to make sure that he had rent on time. So this is a character that lives life check by check by check, and he has a boss that doesn't give two s's about who he is, and he basically laughs in his face when he brings him some great pictures. So yeah, I mean, hilarity ensues when it comes to J. Jonah Jameson. But look at Peter Parker's life. It's very very screwed up. But he always tries to look at the better side of things, and that's what everyone should be more encompassing about. That this is somebody you should strive to be, not Tom Holland's version. Tom Holland's Peter Parker has everything handed to him. Everything was handed to him, and that's not what it's about. A true measure of a hero is a hero when the chips are down. What does he do? He doesn't go to his friends and ask them for help. He basically, what he does is, if he can handle it, he handles it. That's what a man does. A child goes and asks for help. And there's nothing wrong with, if the situation is way out of his league that he needs help, then that's no problem. But for Spider-Man, we haven't seen him be truly physically and mentally tested on his own. He's always asked for help. Now, there's certain avenues that they have done in the movies that granted this, yes, but Peter Parker has never been truly tested. It's always been Spider-Man. Peter Parker hasn't. And the measure of a true hero is the person underneath the suit, not the suit itself. And that was the lesson that Tony Stark was trying to teach him. If you can't be a hero outside of the suit, then there's no reason for you to have the suit. And that's what, and I took that line as, that's him telling that to the audience, that it's not about the suit itself. The suit is only a tool. It's the person underneath the suit that uses the tool. That's the measure of a person. And I really like that line, because that's something that I never would have heard Tony Stark ever say to Peter Parker. I would hear that from Captain America. I wouldn't hear that from Tony Stark. Tony Stark doesn't give two S's. But this is the MCU Tony Stark, and that makes sense. Now, getting to this whole situation with Disney and Sony, like I said, this might be a rant, it might not. But however, I want to make this absolutely clear. I've said this before and I say it again. I do not have a pure stain hatred for Marvel. I want great Marvel movies, but I also want characters to at least be 90% from the comics. They done Spider-Man correctly. That is Spider-Man. What they did with Spider-Man is perfect. They screwed up on Peter Parker. I said this in my Far From Home video and even my Homecoming video. They really, really messed up on Peter Parker. And all I asked is, give me Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Peter Parker, with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. That's the perfect Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation. And that'd be perfect. Now, in this meme, which I think is a very funny meme, you have basically Tom Holland about to be hanged, and you have him looking to his right, and he looks, and you see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire looks at him and says, "First time." you know, it's a really really interesting line for him to say, and it does make sense, because Sony did Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, and those were the greatest Spider-Man movies I've ever seen. Spider-Man 3 is debatable, but it's pretty bad. Now, when they rebooted him and did the Amazing Spider-Man and they introduced the Lizard, I didn't like the design of the Lizard. I thought the design of the Lizard was very, very, it wasn't that good. But what they did was they showed us a different Peter Parker. This version of Peter was more of a hipster. And if you really have read any of the Spider-Man comics, the hipster version of Peter Parker was more in the 90s. That was the 90s in the turn of the millennia. That was when Peter, they kind of redid Spider-Man, put him back kind of in, he's semi in college, and he's Spider-Man, but he's more of the hipster. And he's an adult, he still has the responsibilities. And, his Aunt May he's still taking care of his Aunt May, but he 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 kind of flagrates life a little bit, but he does live up to his responsibilities. Now, Tobey Maguire's version was more close to the Steve Ditko Stan Lee version, which was he lived up to the responsibilities of what happened to his uncle, and he chose not to let that happen to anybody else. Now, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, in his Peter Parker, is more in line with the Ultimate Spider-Man. Um, However, he doesn't have any responsibilities. Everything has been handed to him. So I can't get behind his Peter Parker. I can't truly get behind his Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I think they did him. He does the character right. But the problem is that's not Peter Parker. And I love Peter Parker and I love Spider-Man. I think they're both really great characters. You guys can like Miles Morales. You guys can like other people that was inside the suit like Ben Riley. You can like Julia Carpenter. I'm sorry, Julia Carpenter. You can like Ariana. You can like anybody else who was in the Spider-Man suit. Heck, even Daredevil was in the Spider-Man suit at one point. Matt Murdock took over the suit when Peter was injured. I think he was injured or he was gone, and the city needed Spider-Man, and he took up the mantle as Spider-Man. Um, Same thing happened with with Peter Parker. He took up the mantle as Daredevil at one point because Matt Murdock was in jail, and the only reason and the Kingpin put him in there because he wanted to see if Daredevil and Matt Murdock were the same person. But Matt Murdock asked Peter Parker to put on the suit and go around and start beating up criminals using his nightstick. So he's like, okay. And because of his spider sense and his abilities, he was easily able to make everyone believe that he's Daredevil. I mean, he has the spider sense. He can close his eyes and just move around. Who cares? So it doesn't matter to him. So I really, really like that. And that was the reason why I think that they should have done this version of Spider-Man a little bit older. He's already been pre-established. The only reason why no one's heard of him because he's an urban myth. You could have done him more as this like a Batman type of character. Like he shows up, he does his thing, and he disappears. Like he doesn't take credibility or anything like that. He doesn't want the limelight. And you could have easily have done him as an older Spider-Man. And then if you wanted to move past Peter Parker, you could have easily introduced Miles Morales, and I think I personally would have been perfectly fine with it, and I think the audience would have been perfectly fine with it. But having him more in high school, you place a lot of politics into the whole genre, and I'm sorry, not in the whole genre, but into his universe that makes no sense. Race changed a lot of characters that makes no sense, and also you took away the one of the greatest gifts off of Peter Parker is he is the smartest kid in the school. He doesn't belong at Midvale High, Midtown High. He doesn't belong there. He belongs in like MIT, or he belongs in a upper echelon school. But his aunt and uncle chose him not to go to these schools because they don't want him to feel like that he's different. They want him to have a little bit more of a natural childhood. But his natural childhood was always being ridiculed by everybody else and beaten up. But the greatest thing about his character is his uncle was there to give him guidance. He taught him how to be a man. And that's where I feel that they really screwed up on his character. Now, they didn't have to show Uncle Ben's death. No. But they could have shown the emotional turmoil and the emotional toll that his uncle's death had on him and and May. So why didn't they do that? Did his uncle, I mean, Uncle Ben is one of the most pivotal characters in comics. Yes, in comics. That is his Uncle Ben is the one of actually the most important character in Peter Parker's life. Yes, he has Tony Stark. Yes, he can have his Aunt May. But his Uncle Ben taught him how to be a man. His Uncle Ben was there when his parents weren't there. His Uncle Ben is his biological blood family. And you're basically cutting that out of him. That's like a child. That's like a child not having a father his whole life. What the heck is that about? And now his whole life is happy-go-lucky? No. What the heck is that about? You even saw the emotional turmoil in Tobey Maguire's version. That was the catalyst to his whole character. You saw it even in Andrew Garfield's character, but he still was kind of like that hipster character, but he's still he still it still showed how his Uncle Ben's death affected him. And again, you didn't have to show the death of his Uncle Ben. You didn't have to. You could have wrote around that and said that no, his Uncle Ben died and this is what happened and this is the aftermath of this. So there are a lot of things they could have done, and I personally believe that they could easily fix it if they decide they want to reboot it. Me personally, I don't think that Tom Holland will come back. I think he's much happier when he was with the MCU because he was able to have be around all these other heroes, and and have that level of freedom with Kevin Feige and such like that. I think that if he ever did go to Sony, he would feel constricted, and he would feel like he wouldn't have the freedom to do what he needed to do. So if this doesn't move, I think that he's gone. I think they're going to completely reboot. I think they will reboot Spider-Man in the Venom universe, and but that's just my opinion. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying anything, and I don't even have any level of evidence that supports it. It's just I'm seeing how the wheels move, and I'm seeing how Disney works right now. From what a lot of the accounts are saying is Disney wants half and half, and in a financial standpoint, I think that seems a little bit fair because they're the ones that's putting more of the stake into this. They're the ones that's putting him in this universe, and if it doesn't work out, it's egg on their faces. It's not on Sony. Sony has the least liability out of this because yes, they're the ones that put their names on it, and they're a publisher, but Disney's the distributor, or vice versa. So excuse me. So sorry about that. So um, if if they went the route of taking Spider-Man out of the MCU with them building Venom, and it made a lot of money. I don't care what anybody says. They can say, "Oh, it was crap," whatever. It doesn't matter. It made a lot of money, and that's all that and that's going to be the one thing that matters when it comes down to these movies. It's how much money they make. You know, despite if it's great or it's terrible, it's got to be about the money. And it made a lot of money, and it actually garnered a lot of people to really like it. They actually liked it. They it wasn't trying to be pretentious. It was just like, hey, this is kind of like a comedy movie, and you have almost this Abbott and Costello act going on between Eddie and the symbiote. So, and it actually worked, and I actually liked it. You know, a buddy of mine who's a huge Venom fan even said that, hey, he found it actually entertaining. You know, he didn't like it very well, but you know, he still found it very entertaining. He laughed. He really loves Tom Hardy. I like Tom Hardy too. So I have no problems. I had no big problems with his version of Venom, and I think they're going to do a really great job in future endeavors. But if they ever are going to do Spider-Man in that universe, they have to have him pre-made. He's got to be an older Spider-Man that already has been pre-established, and explain why he wasn't around. So I don't know what they're going to do, but if they're going to take the mold and figure out what they're going to do with this version of Peter, um, in my personal opinion, make him older, make him wiser, make him acknowledged, and I would say make him a little bit more broken, and then give us a good level of a story with him, and then slowly edge him out and bring in Miles Morales. Now, again, I will completely say again, I have no problems with Miles Morales' character. I think they need to build him and Peter up and get that mentorship, so then we're seeing the birth of a new Spider-Man to take over, and then you can either have Peter get killed or he gets sent away, like he's gone, like he's now gone. And now you got Miles Morales taking over as Spider-Man, and everyone's gonna it makes it feel more natural. It makes it feel like, oh, we're getting propped up. This is gonna be the Spider-Man that's gonna take over. So then it won't feel like they're just gonna get him in a suit and then throw him in front of everybody and say, okay, well, this is your new Spider-Man. That's gonna feel unnatural. That's not gonna feel like, why should I want to watch this character? I mean, I don't know nothing about him, and now you're shoving him in my face. That's how some people are gonna feel. I'm not saying everybody, but there are gonna be some. Me personally, I'm gonna feel that way. I'm like, well, I already know who Miles Morales is, but I would like to see them build him up and give him angst, and also give him personality against Peter's. Like he could be more forceful than Peter. He could be more direct. While Peter's trying to say, "Hey, no, we got to do it this way." You have Miles says, "No, I can get it done this way." And he gets in and he gets way over his head, which causes Peter to kind of get him out of the situation. So it's going to show experience versus inexperience, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the experience grow, and it's not wasting movies building them up because you're getting a young Miles Morales and you got an old Peter Parker. I'm not saying old, but I'm saying an older Peter, and you're building him up. So, and that's what they could have done with Tobey Maguire in his Spider-Man. They could have easily have him in as the older Peter Parker who knows everything. He's experienced. He knows how to fight these villains, and he could easily get it done with minimal casualties and even more minimal destruction to his gear and his suits. So why the heck is this kid jumping in the middle of the fray thinking that he's just gonna be able to overpower all these villains, which Peter could easily do himself, but he's saying no, there's a much better way to get it done. And he's teaching him how to use his brain instead of brawn. And I feel that that's those are the things we're kind of missing with this version of Peter. That he's not really out thinking his opponents. He's not being Peter. He's not being Spider-Man. And Far From Home did a really great job with one thing. They did a really great job with how Peter overcame his holographic projections using his, well, I call it the spider sense. I'm not calling it Peter's tingle. That is gross and it's stupid. His spider sense. He utilized his spider sense to feel and see through the hologram, to understand where everything is and be able to beat down the villain. And it made sense. I really liked it. Now I know how a lot of fans are going to feel, and we heard a lot about boycotting and this and that. Well, this is the end result when you give candy to kids. That's what happens when they know that things are not going to happen their way. What do? Throw a tantrum. Now, this is bad. This is very, very bad. And I think that Sony is trying to prove a point to say, you need us more. You need us more than we need you. And Disney's looking at it as, no, that's the reverse. You need us more than we need you, and because we could still do these movies without Spider-Man, and we'll still make a whole buttload of money. You're gonna still have trouble trying to figure out that universe of yours. However, all Sony needs is the same as what DC is doing. Just make the movies. Marvel's gonna do their thing. The thing about Disney and Marvel is they're going to pay those critics. They're going to pay them. We know they're getting paid because they're not giving them money. They're giving them free stuff. They're giving them free access. They're giving them this. They're giving them that without any money exchanging. So that's going to create bias. Now look, everyone, you can go back and look at all the reviews about the Venom, and they essed all over it. They crapped all over the movie, and it made a crap load of money. People didn't care, and that was the start of why people are starting to say screw critics. And I say the same thing too. Screw them. You're the one that's paying your money. If the trailer looks cool and you like it, go see it. I'm not saying you should listen to me. I'm just saying I'm just talking. I'm just giving my opinion. If you guys think that my opinion is valid, then okay, but I'm telling you, go see the movie. And I will say the same thing for any Marvel movie. Even if I say it is garbage, I will still go see the movie. I said the same thing for Captain Marvel. I hated that movie. I hated that movie up and down the street. But I will tell people, go see the movie so you understand why people didn't like this movie, why this movie was mediocre. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So all I'm extending out to you is this: don't boycott. Really, don't boycott it. Just accept whatever happens. And if Tom Holland is out as Spider-Man, he will be missed. We had the same thing for Andrew Garfield, but Andrew Garfield kind of just gave up on the role anyway. He wasn't really into being Spider-Man. He thought it was a cool gig, and he just moved on with his life. Tobey Maguire had his own personal demons he was dealing with, but he never said no to anything. He really didn't. He wanted to continue doing it. He wanted to do Spider-Man 4, Spider-Man 5. He was ready to go, but Sony went in a different direction. Now Tom Holland, he says he wants to play the character for another two more movies, maybe until he can't walk anymore. And I think that shows a lot. He has a lot of love for this character. And I think that if Sony presents to him a very good script that keeps his character almost in the same vein, but he's changed up just a little bit, so they can put him another universe. I think that Tom Holland would actually go further with it, and he would move over and work with Sony. But the way things are, I think he's much happier being with the MCU because he gets to mess around with all these other heroes and all these other big stars. So, but we have to see. Um, we it's just gonna be one of those things. I think that we're jumping the gun here. That right now they're still in the middle of negotiations. I think that I think that the the profit margin between both companies is going to get smaller. It's going to get smaller between them. I think that they're going to work out another negotiation deal until Tom Holland Spider-Man is done, and then I think that Sony's going to try to pull out. I think that Sony's going to try to pull out, and they're going to reboot Spider-Man in their universe. That's my hypothesis, and I think that they should do that mainly because it gives more to what is the word? It gives more to both it gives more to both Marvel and Sony, so they can actually do more movies. Because if you really think about it, if Sony was able to do their movies on their own schedule, then we'll have more Spider-Man movies out. But if you do it under MCU, we have to wait until they have to tell these sides of the story. Think about that. It's one of those things. Just really think about that. If we have to go under what the MCU is doing, that means we won't get another Spider-Man movie until another year or two. If we go by Sony, it'll be about the same time. However, it's going to be more free. He'll be able to they could do whatever they want with his character. He could have more fun. They could still do the teen angst, but I have a feeling they're going to do a little bit closer to not Andrew Garfield's, but more to Tobey Maguire's version. Give him a little bit more weight on his shoulders, because yes, it's not about the world for him. It's the neighborhood. He is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and we're not getting that from him. I'm personally not getting that from him. I'm getting that he's still trying to figure it all out when he should already have it figured out. He should be smart enough to figure it out, but it just seems like they're hampering it for some reason, and it doesn't feel right. So that's my video. Like, comment, share, subscribe down below. If you agree with me or not, it's perfectly fine. I have a strong skin when it comes down to the criticisms of how I feel about Spider-Man. He is my favorite hero of all time. He is my favorite superhero. I take every lesson that this character learned and I put into my everyday life. That life, you can enjoy your life, but you also got to take your responsibilities. You got to be an adult a lot of the times, and Spider-Man is a pillar. He's a pillar of Marvel. He's been the pillar of Marvel for close to 40 years. I mean, until Wolverine toppled him. But if you really look at his character, he is a consistent. He is always there for everybody, and that's the hallmark of why I love his character. And it's not about anybody can be Spider-Man. Not everybody can be Spider-Man. Anybody could put on the suit, but nobody could be truly Spider-Man, and not Peter Parker. And I think that insulting his character and insulting the legacy that he's going to live behind just to make him a teenager that's basically everything's handed to him like he's a gold medal winner at everything. That's not serving a better purpose. That's not building his character. That's just showing that everything's still going to be handed to him, even though he's knocked down to the ground. They're still going to hand stuff to him. If you look at Tobey Maguire, or hell, even Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and their Peters, nothing was truly handed to them. They actually worked for everything. And that's what gives me a more appreciation to their Peter Parker than it is to Tom Holland's. Now, that's my video. I hope you guys like it. And again, comment, share, subscribe down below. What do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think. Let's be civil, and let's talk about it. And you guys have a great night. Bye.